Going back to one more thing, you mentioned something really different about oneness. I don't know, to start with, like, I could never personally grasp this oneness. And although there was a sense of being familiar with, I would see someone and I would know them, you know, but at the same time, I felt I wasn't, when someone said to me something on Facebook, you are one with such and such, because I disliked something, they said, but you are one with that. I kind of, again, that feeling wasn't right. Like, I was like, no, I'm still, yes, there could be one space in a way, but we're all individual, unique beings. What did you say about oneness? You expressed it so well.
Oneness is one of those terms that is understood differently by different people. And so it's really hard to clarify it. If the idea is that there's no division between one person and another, that's nonsense. But if I say it's nonsense. I've now offended a number of people, and the ones who weren't offended might also say Roberts just doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Doesn't get non-duality. I get that a lot. If you only understood what non-duality was, Robert, you wouldn't talk that way. Well, I get that's possible. I mean, I could be a total idiot for all I know, and people are just being kind to me. No, there is a sense of oneness. I think we feel that we feel connected.
Yeah.
That I mentioned, you know, seeing a bird on a tree before. If I really take that in, that cardinal, the line that separates us can blur. And so I understand that we're all an expression of this aliveness, and in that sense, we're all in the same boat. So that's a kind of a oneness. But when that's carried out theoretically to extremes, such as no person really exists, this is a classic example of how that oneness thing can be misunderstood. I say misunderstood, although they'll tell me I don't understand it. So we have to be careful about oneness and not make a God out of it. The idea is not to merge with the universe or something. There's no, you can't do that. Life will prove to you that it's not true. Things will occur that will show you your separation and your humanness, your animalness will show you that you're a separate animal, that you, as I say, you're going to die, and you die alone. And where's the oneness in that? Well, there isn't any. I think if we fully embrace our humanity, we will understand oneness as our connection to all and everything, but we won't imagine that there's no separate self and that it's just this one universal self or this source or this God.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to get on a rant, but I think the God idea is where this oneness thing comes from.
Yeah.
And it, I believe that the idea of God is not a healthy idea for humans. It's theoretical. Nobody really knows what that is or if it exists at all. So it's just an idea. And when that idea takes hold, it can be comforting to people. I understand that. And if someone believes that Jesus is going to welcome them into heaven, okay, I'm not going to quarrel with that. It may even be true, although it seems unlikely. But the God idea is a good one to dispense with, I say, if you want to be awake. And just admit to yourself that you really don't know anything about any of this. You don't know what any of this is, where it came from. You don't know if someone's in charge of it or not. You don't know if it's one or many. you don't even know if there's any spiritual side to it at all. This entire manifestation could be just physics and chemistry. It really could. I know people hate that idea, but it's not an idea to be hated. It's an idea to be considered, I say. And so when I criticize spirituality, that's one of my main critiques, that when an idea is put forth and there's no real evidence for it except testimony and tradition and scripture, please reject the idea.
Yeah.
I don't mean, when I say reject it, I don't mean to say that's not true, but reject the idea that it's true with a capital T, and ask yourself, what's the evidence for it? Yeah. And I think that's what I got at in both of my books, to ask yourself, when any proposition is presented to you, ask yourself, what's the evidence for this? How do you know that? How do I know that? And I think if we do that, we clear our minds. And then instead of being filled with theory about who and what we are, we can observe directly who and what we are, which is my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my desires, my understanding. That's what I am. I am my understanding, my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my desires, my perceptions. That's what I call Robert, not some connection to so-called source, which may not even exist. So that's a core. If I have a message, that's right at the core of it, that we need to be epistemological in our approach to this world, by which I mean to constantly ask ourselves, when we have an idea that we want to believe in, it's an attractive idea, it's an attractive fantasy to think Jesus will save me, for example, then you have to ask yourself, how do I know that? Do I know it because it's in the Bible and Mom taught it to me? Is that evidence? See, that's a good question. Mm-hmm. And I think what you see in me, Sabine, and others who are like me, is we don't stop asking those questions. We don't say, now I've got it figured out. Now I understand. Now I know how everything is. No, I don't. I don't know. I don't have any secrets. Yeah. I'm just an ordinary human being who thinks about these matters somewhat deeply. Yeah. And I don't imagine that in my lifetime I'm going to arrive at any answers. And because I have no answers, I think I don't injure the people who come to me for answers. I turn them back on their own yes, abilities. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And to me, that would be, I would like to see more of that, where the spiritual teachers admit to themselves, I'm teaching these things, but I don't really know them to be factual. I really don't. And if someone would do that, I think you'd get a better class of teaching, much better.
It seems to me that most teach different things to what I actually live. You know, after the meeting or before the meeting is one thing, and during the meeting, it's completely different story. And this is also what I've seen with you. You don't separate awareness from the what isness. That's what you said in your book also. You don't separate it, which is really, you don't know, like you are alive, there are feelings, there are emotions, so you're not separate from it, isn't it?
Well, that's another spiritual trope with which I disagree. And in that approach, the idea is that there's this freestanding awareness that exists, and then there are objects that fill that awareness. They're the content of consciousness, as this is sometimes said. Well, I don't think there's consciousness apart from the contents. The contents and the consciousness are the same thing. They arise together. Yeah. And what we call consciousness is a difficult word. I'd rather just call it noticing.
Yes, when we notice, like that. Noticing is a really good word.
Yeah, it's noticing. That's what consciousness is. It's noticing. And that's why we have the idea of the unconscious. And a lot of teaching tries to deny the unconscious, and they try to deny psychology entirely. But it's clear to me that there is an unconscious. And for example, my bones are living organisms unto themselves. They have a living core, and that core is sending out signals all the time that go to the brain and perceived in the brain. Well, I am not conscious of those signals. I will be if I fell down and broke my back, and then I was conscious of my bones and the signals they were sending, because it was horrible pain. But normally, these signals are being sent from all the organs in the body. The liver is conversing with the brain. The bowels are conversing with the brain. The bones are, the skin, all of this. We're not conscious of that, but that's there. That's unconscious. There are also unconscious desires and thoughts and feelings, which is what emerges in psychoanalysis. We can become conscious of our dreams, but not all of them. Many dreams occur and they're unnoticed, but they're still there. They took place in the brain. They made changes while they were happening. So they become part of myself. See, that's a much more organic and honest way, I say, honest, I think it's honest, of regarding myself, not as this freestanding awareness, that's this oneness that's connected to the whole universe, and now it gets filled with little fantasies, such as an oak tree or a cup of coffee. See, in that way, this doesn't really exist. Just consciousness. See? Well, if I drop the cup and it breaks, then I won't have it tomorrow. So I think it exists now, and I hope it's my favorite cup. I've already broken one just like it. And so this is the last one of these.